Thank you. Transparency is once again being challenged by the state. This past week, Attorney General Tim Griffin releasing an opinion saying that private schools, even the ones that accept public dollars through the LEARNS Act, are not subject to the Freedom of Information Act.
And this means that private schools won't be forced to hand over any records that public schools would have to. Things like a budget, school curriculum, test scores, and disciplinary actions involving teachers.
Jessica Rank has been looking into the Attorney General's letter, doing some background research on this. Jessica, first of all, is this legal?
Yeah, Lauren, Bob, I think that's the question a lot of us are asking tonight. The Attorney General says this has to do with the fact that private schools aren't run by the government. But at the end of the day, this is an opinion, and it won't be determined legal or not legal until it is challenged and goes before a judge.
The Attorney General has decided private schools are immune to FOIA.
The latest letter from Arkansas Attorney General Tim Griffin is making waves.
Even though we're paying public tax dollars, basically you don't have to show us your success rate.
Griffin's opinion, which was released to legislators last week, says private schools are not subject to FOIA, despite getting public money from education freedom accounts. He breaks down his decision like this. Private schools or businesses are only subject to FOIA if, 1, they're receiving public funding, and 2, if their activities are intertwined with those of the government. Griffin says the second criteria is not applicable.
Bottom line, if your school is taking public dollars to provide education, then that public dollar should come with public transparency and public accountability.
Now, since its release, the letter has gotten a lot of pushback from taxpayers and people in public education. Bill Kopsky with AR Public Policy says the decision could spiral into larger problems with transparency.
Public school, if you have a problem with something the school board is doing, or even if you're just curious about something happening in the school, you have the right to go to the school board meeting. You have a right to see a budget. You have a right to see an audit of that budget. In these private schools, you don't have the right to any of that.
I reached out to Tim Griffin. He says he wasn't available for an interview, but sent me this statement. Quote, "My opinion simply reflects what the law in Arkansas is. The law is very clear. Private schools are not subject to FOIA."
Do you think the law is very clear in this sense?
I am not a lawyer, but I don't.
After our conversation, I reached out to John DePippa, a former dean at the Bowman School of Law.
Lots of groups get grants from the government to carry things out, and no one expects them to be governed by the same rules as the government in regard to FOIA.
Griffin alludes to this in his letter, saying that because private schools are not regulated by the government, they don't have to heed to the same rules. DePippa says the phrase intertwined with the government is a gray area.
I think there's a stronger case to be made for FOIA in regard to these private schools doing a traditional government function.
At the end of the day, that's all it is an opinion.
Now, DePippa says while this may not turn into a big issue now, as the LEARNS Act continues to grow and more money goes to these private schools, the idea of FOIA may become a front and center issue. Reporting in studio, I'm Jessica Rank for KARK 4 News.
Jessica, thank you.